Vaikach Korah in Hebrew. Vaikach Korah. And Vaikach Korah is an interesting Hebrew phrase. And what it means, and took Korah. Now, in the English, the word took is actually at the end of the sentence. But in Hebrew, it actually begins and took. That verb right away, and took, that is an emphasis, and he took, talking about Korah. And he took, or Korah took. Now, Korah was the son of Ishchar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi. So he was one of Levi's grandson. Korach was Levi's grandson. Now remember, all priests, all Kohanim are Levites. But not all Levites are Kohanim. In Hebrew, in biblical faith, we have a hierarchy. And the priests are at the top. Under the priests are the Levites. And under the Levites are Kol Israel, the community of Israel, the Kehillah of Israel. So we have the Kohanim, the Leviim, and Israel, the community Edah Israel. And within that structure, Adonai has other leadership position. We saw that already twice. There are times when Adonai sets judges. And the judge system, Adonai said, and of course some of the judges in the 40 years died off, and at the end of Deuteronomy, he had to set judges off again. He also has Roshim. The Rosh are the heads of the communities, the heads of families, the heads of clans. And so there's Nasim. A Nasi is, again, a prince or a chief. So Rosh, Nasi, judge, these are different names for leadership positions within all of Israel. But the top three are the Kohanim, the priests, the Leviim, the Levites, and Kol Israel, the community of Israel. Los Kohanim son los sacerdotes, los Leviim son los levitas, y luego todo Israel. These are the three levels of Hebraic leadership. Now, we also have the leadership of the firstborn. The firstborn of the firstborn of the firstborn of the firstborn, they're always leaders. But remember, Adonai with Pidyon Haben, with the redemption of the firstborn, that goes to the Leviim. So there's a place and a role for every person in Israel. Now, not only in Torah, in Tanakh, but even in the Brit Chadashah, in the New Covenant apostolic writings, we find the idea of all things have to be done what? Decently and in order. Leadership has to do with doing things decently and in order. In fact, one of the things that has happened in several aspects, I was looking this week and doing some research and digging on leadership, and one of the areas that I was noticing was a friend of mine that we went to college together, Bible college together under Hal Lindsey, also like me became a pastor, a teacher, and at that time was a time, I don't know if you guys remember, of the Jesus people. They called them the Jesus people. And every one of us kind of, went out and we became pastors. And of course, we were very non-traditional churches. I started a Bible church and a coffee house. I had a coffee house in the South Valley for many years. And it was non-traditional praise, worship ideas that at that time, well, he started, again, another non-traditional coffee house type ministry. And it went on for several years. But what I was noticing is that in the 1990s, they had a kind of what almost everyone goes through when you do non-traditional, low key, we're all the same, we're all equal, and there's no one higher than anybody else. Well, anytime you start doing that, there's always a self-appointed leader, someone that says, well, I'll do this, and then everybody kind of little by little is influenced by someone's charismatic personality or someone's hardness. And so there's no such thing as it's like in a vacuum, someone always has to be the leader. And so they went through this situation where they had to appoint leaders, and they had to, my friend became the senior pastor, and with other pastors, other elders, things like that, and it became very traditional. And I think many of us have gone through that, where we've started non-traditional ministries, but there's always someone that wants to dictate, wants to take charge. And if you have other weak leaders, then one person always comes back. We see that in a lot of the cowboy movies, the old cowboy movies, where, and there really is no leadership in the house. The cattleman, the top cattleman of the town or the area takes over the town. Korach, the grandson of Levi, and two other guys, Dathan and Abiram, and again they were sons of Eliab, sons of On and Peleth, and they were sons of Reuben. So Reuben was, quote, the firstborn of Israel, remember? So we have the firstborn of Israel, Reuben, and his grandkids, and we have the sons of Levi, the grandkids of Levi, and now it says Korach, Dathan, and Abiram, they took 250 of the sons of Israel, leaders in the community, Roshim, leaders, Rosh, not just the riffraff, not just the mob. These guys took leaders in the Moedim. Of course, it uses the word there, prominent men in the solemn feasts or in the set apart in the Moedim, which means that these guys were people that were probably from the Levitical lines that were working with the feasts, the Feast of Passover, the Feast of Tabernacles, and they were leaders. They were prominent men. They were men with names, in other words, good reputations. And now, what they do is they bring, what does it say? A rebellion. Watch what it says in verse 3. These joined forces against Moses and Aaron, saying to them, you take too much on yourselves. The whole community and all its members are just as holy and Yahweh lives among them also. Why do you set yourselves higher than the community of Yahweh? And so they rebelled, and it uses the word rebelled. They rebelled against Moses and Aaron. In other words, Adonai had set up the Kohanim, the Leviim, and the community. The word, by the way, community there is the word the Kachal, the Kehilah. This is the same word that in the Hebrew translated into Greek is the word ecclesia or iglesia, that is mistranslated into English as church. And by the way, like I said a little while ago with the English, if you really want to translate this like consistent, then every time it uses community, you put the word church in there. I don't know why translators, if they're going to translate Kehilah and Ecclesia in the New Testament as church, why don't they translate the same thing in the Old Testament as church also? Why do they use community here and church here? Well, that right there is a way of hiding Adonai's truth. And this is Adonai's truth, that there's only one Kehilah from Adam to Revelation. There's only one community, only one people of Elohim, and those are those that are righteous in the sight of Him by faith and have received through grace His salvation. That is all the people of Elohim, and it irks me, it gets me upset that the translators don't translate this consistently. But I want you to know that here, the leaders of the church, what is the church? The Kechal, the Kehilah. The leaders of the Kehilah, it says, and I could, anyone that wants to, I could show you in my Hebrew Bible that's what it says. The leaders of the Kehilah, the leaders of the Iglesia, the church, if you want to use the King James word for it. They rebelled against Moses. They rebelled against Elohim given leadership, against the leadership given by Elohim. Moses didn't set this up. Aaron didn't set this up. It was Adonai who set this up. And it's important for us to now just sit in the chair that Adonai has given us to sit in. If He's given you this chair, then sit on that chair. If He's given you this chair, then sit on this chair. If He's given you that chair, sit in that one. We must sit and we must stand and we must walk in the place that Adonai has given each and every one of us. And there's a place for every one of us. There's a role for every one of us. By the way, there's a role for men and there's a role for women. Every spiritual gift is a role that Adonai gives specifically to you. Remember what it says in 1 Corinthians 12. He gives the gifts as the Holy Spirit desires. So whatever gifts you have, they're by the Ruach. Whatever roles that Adonai gave, and when He gives them, and to who He gives them, and for as long as He gives them. Those are His to give, not ours to take without His gift, ours to receive if He's given them to us, but they are His. And it says that Korach, grandson of Levi, Dathan, Abraham, grandkids of Reuben, rebelled against Moses together with 250 of the sons of Israel, leaders, Rosh, heads, Nasis, chiefs, prominent men. They joined forces with Aaron against the same. You take too much on yourselves. Wait a second. No, they don't. Moses is considered the most humble man in the earth at the time. So he's not taking on his shoulders things that hasn't been given to him. He only takes what Adonai has given to him. Aaron was chosen to be the first high priest by Adonai. Moses didn't choose Aaron. Adonai chose Aaron. And from Aaron's line, remember, Moses and Aaron are both Levites. In fact, even Moses wasn't chosen to be the first high priest. Notice that Moses was not chosen to be the high priest. Notice that Moses was not chosen to be a king. He wasn't chosen to be a governor. Adonai chose him only for one thing, to lead the people out of Egypt. That's it. Lead my people out of Egypt. That's it. He wasn't a priest. He wasn't a king. Adonai chose him to speak forth the word. He was just what we would call today a prophet. He was a prophet. He spoke the word of Adonai to the people, and that's it. So he could not become a king. He could not become a priest. Adonai gave the priesthood to his brother Aaron and his sons. And the Levites he gave to the sons of Levi. By the way, Korach was a son of Levi. Korach was one of the main guys that, with the other two brothers, Gershom and the other, were to carry the tabernacle. Their job was carrying the tabernacle. Their job would also ensue being teachers and teaching the word of Elohim to those around them. But you take too much of yourselves now. Here are the seeds of rebellion. And the seeds of rebellion are also what we call the seeds of division. Here was a division in the church in the wilderness. The church in the wilderness, the Kehillah, as it's called in Hebrew here, had a division. Now remember, what is division? Division is two visions. Two visions. Vision is what Adonai gave to Moshe. Vision is what Adonai gave to Moshe and Aaron. Vision is what Adonai gave to Moshe, Aaron, and the Levites and all of Israel. Adonai gave them vision, says, this is my vision. I want you guys to be stewards of my vision. And we say, okay. Remember, whatever gift you have is Adonai's vision for the whole Kehillah, the whole body of Messiah throughout the world, and we are only a part of it. In fact, this congregation is only one part, and every one of us here is only one part. We are not the whole thing. Now, many individuals think they're the whole thing. Many congregations think they're the whole thing. Many denominations really think they're the whole thing. Only if you belong to our denomination are you the body of Messiah. You know. Only the Protestants, not the Catholics. Only the Catholics, not the Protestants. Only the Baptists, not the Nazarene. Only the Jehovah's Witnesses, not the Mormons. Now, wait a second. No one could ever say that. We are here a part of the body of Messiah. I, as an individual, are a part. I have a role. Every one of you has a role, gifts that need to be used. Moses had a role, a place. Aaron had a role, had a place. Korah had a role and a place. Can you imagine? Korah would be one of the ones that would carry some of the furnishing. That was his role, to carry furniture. He was a furniture carrier. You know. On his cart, it had Korah and sons moving company. And that's what they did. But think of it, him and his brothers, the Levites, were tired of having a moving company. They actually wanted to be priests. They wanted to be Kohanim. And watch what it says. Not only do you guys take too much on yourselves, they wanted equality. Now, in Adonai, they were all equal. How many of you know that in Adonai we're all equal? We're all the same before Adonai. But that equality does not go to roles and gifts. There's a difference there. Just like men and women are equal. There's no male or female. There's no rich or poor. We're equal. There's no rich people or poor people in Adonai's sight. There's no Jew or Greek in Adonai. Adonai doesn't see, oh, he's a Jew, he's a Greek, he's Jew, he's Greek, Jew, Greek, Jew, Greek. Adonai doesn't say, he's a rich man, poor man. Oh, rich man, poor man, rich. No, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say, oh, that's a man, male, that's a female. No, he looks at our soul and he looks at our heart and he does things. But there are people with more money and people with less money, right? Is that true? How many are people with less money? There's a difference between men and women, right? Women usually have longer hair and men have usually shorter hair. There's a big difference. You know, there are physical and emotional differences. There's differences between Jews and Greeks, language and noses and other characteristics between people. So there are differences. But we're all equal in our differences before Adonai. But these guys, the whole Kehillah, and he used the word Kehillah, the whole church, and all the members of the church are also holy, and Yahweh lives among them. Is that a true statement? Yes, it is. Of course we're all holy. Every person should be holy. Be kadosh as I am kadosh, Adonai says. But what these guys are saying, because the Kohanim have to live a life of consecration, of being set apart. They were ordained priests. And the Leviim were not ordained priests, consecrated or set holy to the priesthood. What the Leviim are saying is, wait a second. We, the Leviim, are just as holy or consecrated to be priests as the Kohanim, as the sons of Aaron are. And that is not a true statement, because their roles were different. And so what the Leviim wanted to do was be priests. It's almost like today. Today we have elders and we have deacons. The elders eld and the deacons deek. To eld means to lead, to be an older man and to be able to be a leader. By the way, there's no such thing as elderesses or deaconesses. There's elders and deacons, but there's no elderesses or deaconesses in an ordained manner. The word diakonos, where we get the word deacon, it means a servant, someone who serves. Now, the Kohanim are like the elders. The Kohanim are like the elders. The Leviim are like the deacons. The Leviim were actually the deacons of the elders, of the Kohanim, of the priests. Because the priest didn't do the moving and storage of the items throughout the 40 years. That was the work and role of the Leviim. The Kohanim did the services. They actually did the ritual. Their responsibility was the ritual. Their responsibility was to teach. These were their responsibilities. The Kohanim had responsibilities and the Leviim have responsibilities. The elders have responsibilities and the deacons have responsibilities today. There are role responsibilities. But over here, the deacons or the Leviim said, we are equal to the priests. It'd be just like today, a deacon saying, well, I'm just as good as any elder here. Or I'm even better than the elders. Or I'm just as ordained as any of the elders. And there are roles and responsibilities of elders and roles and responsibilities of deacons. And each one has their roles and responsibilities lined up, which we'll see in a little while. Why set yourselves higher than the community of Yahweh? Again, why are you guys setting yourself higher than the Kehillah, the Kahal of Yahweh? Remember, it's the Kahal of Yahweh. It is the church of Yahweh, the community of Israel, of Yahweh. By the way, in the Greek, the two translations in the Greek of these words are ecclesia, where we get the word ecclesia, mistranslated as church in King James, or the word synagoga. In one Greek translation, the word synagoga is found here, which means that before the time of Yeshua, a kehillah, a synagoga, and an ecclesia were synonymous terms with one another. So we call ourselves a kehillah. We are the assembly. And by the way, all it means is an assembly. The word kehillah is not a religious term. The word ecclesia is not a religious term. The word synagoga is not a religious term. They are secular terms, language secular terms, in any language. For example, the word ecclesia in Greek is any assembly. The polis, the city, had an ecclesia. And every city, every polis in the Greek city-states had an ecclesia. What was the ecclesia? The ecclesia was the legislature, the general assembly. We have the legislature. We have the Senate. What is a legislature? What is a Senate? It's a group of men that come together. Nowadays we have women, but in the olden days, in every country, it was only men until America in modern times. But it was those that were elected and called out. The word kahal means to call. Hey, ven acá, come over here. We need you, assemble. Let's assemble, let's come. And let's have a meeting. Every time you call a meeting to order, whether it's downtown for the city council, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or in Santa Fe, that's a kehillah. That's a church. Why don't we translate that as church? Let's be consistent. It's a church. It's a gathering. It's a circle of people. The word church actually means the word circle, circus, a round thing. Why set yourselves higher than the community? Because Adonai set them higher. The Kohanim are here. The Leviim are here. And the community of Israel is here. So even the Leviim are higher than the community of Israel. And the Kohanim are higher than them. Moses, when he heard this, threw himself downward to the ground. Because of this rebellion, by the way, write this scripture down. 1 Samuel 15:23. 1 Samuel 15:23. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So when you rebel against leadership, Adonai sees that as the sin of witchcraft. It is witchcraft. It is sorcery to rebel against leadership. And that is found with Saul, King Saul, who rebelled also against Yahweh. And he was the king. And he, as the king, rebelled against Adonai's ways, against his manner and his way. And in verse 7, he says to them to get some censers. And, you know, a censer is in fact, I had one over here. I don't know what happened to it. I have a censer. Maybe, Gilbert, you could, inside the little doors, there's a censer. And a censer is where you put incense. And you put incense there, and you sense. And incense and a censer is a symbol of prayer. Well, a censer is a symbol of a priest. A priest, the responsibility of a priest is to pray. Remember, the responsibility of a prophet is to have his back towards Adonai and his face to the people and get the word of Adonai and speak it to the people. Thus saith Yahweh. The responsibility of a priest is to have his back on the people and his face to Adonai and intercess the prayers of the people to Adonai. So a prophet speaks from Adonai to the people. A priest speaks from the people to Adonai. And a censer is the symbol of a priest. It's a symbol of their priestly prayer duty. Well, now, these 250 guys, we want to be priests. We're just as equal. We are prominent men. We are Levites. And, we could do what you're doing. Yeah, maybe you could do it. You know what? I bet you there's some girls that could beat me in arm wrestling. Is there anyone that could think they could beat me in arm wrestling? I'm pretty sure there's someone that could beat me in arm wrestling. But because they might be stronger, does that mean that, well, now let's do the roles according to the strong? No. The roles are according to who Adonai wants. To whom Adonai wants. Not to just because you're strong. When Israel wanted a king, they picked the tallest, handsomest guy around, King Saul. But he wasn't qualified because he was from the tribe of Benjamin, not Judah. And they picked the one that they wanted. The best man for the job. Well, it's not the best man for the job, the handsomest man for the job, the strongest or the most, charismatic leader. No, it's the one that Adonai wants. And so what happened is later on when Adonai rejected King Saul because he wasn't the man that he had chosen, he was the people's choice. He got the people's choice award. Well, now what happened is that Adonai says to the prophet, go to the sons of Jesse. Go to the sons of Jesse and tell them. Anoint one of their sons. So what does Jesse do? He puts all his sons, this one, tallest, oldest, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And Samuel says, no, Jesse. None of, don't you have another kid? Don't you have someone else? You know, none of, well, I got a runt. He's short and ruddy, and you know, and all of a sudden, he's the one that he anointed to be king. David. He wasn't the oldest, he wasn't the handsomest, he wasn't the best, but he was the one that Adonai chose. And I always remember that. Don't ever choose leadership because they have the most money, because they're the handsomest, because they're the strongest, or this and that. Pick the one that Adonai says, that's my choice. Which means we need to go in prayer, know the word, and know what the requirements are. And so he says, you Levites, sons of Levi, you take too much on yourselves. In other words, the Levites said to Moses and Aaron, you guys take too much upon yourselves. And Moses and Aaron says, no, you are the ones that are taking too much on yourselves. You think that we've set ourselves here? No, Adonai set us here. But you know what? You are setting yourselves equally to ours, and there's no equality here. There's no equality. We're equal in the sight of Adonai for everything, but in roles, there's a difference. So, in verse 12, by the way, in verse 10, he has called you to be near him, talking to the Levites. Adonai has called you to be near him. You and all your brother Levites with you. Now you aspire for the office of priesthood as well. And this is the seed of rebellion. Here's where the seed of rebellion comes in. You have a ministry, Levites. You guys are the deacons. Now you want to be the elders. Now you want to be priests also. This is not your choice. This is Adonai's choice. To aspire means that they were envious. They wanted from Aki, from the heart. They were aspiring. I want to be a priest. Now, there's a lot of people that we've gone through, as we're going to look towards the end, that want to be pastor. And there are people that have actually come here and have tried to become a pastor, tried to, well, I know more than a pastor does, or I know more than that, or I could handle this better, and even have crept in through and been part of even the eldership, and have said, oh, you know what? That's not what we want. This is, you know, several years ago, two guys kind of took over, and they changed a lot of stuff. And wait a second. They were very influential and got the board to change things and to move things. And in fact, they even got one of the wives to be part of the finances, and they even changed my salaries and my even what do you call it, the Social Security thing. It took us 2-3 years to get everything, after we asked them to leave, to put everything back in order. And every so often, every congregation will have people that will come in that all of a sudden want to be the teacher, the top teacher. We had a situation in our Spanish group that people want to come in and want to bring in their ways, and we can't have that. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. So it's not what seems right, it's what is right according to Torah. And we need to stand up. And I am thankful that Adonai has given us some elders today, and men that are willing to stand up and say, you know what, we're not going to take that. We're not going to have outsiders come and change what Adonai has given us over here. Because let me tell you, what Adonai has given us here is something really good. I'm really blessed with what we have here. And we don't want to go into, in fact, almost everyone that has come has wanted to take us back into rabbinics or back into this form of Christianity or that form of Christianity or follow this guy. Like I said, we just had, and I won't do what Paul does. Paul names names. Did you guys know that? Paul named names. You know, Hymenaeus and this guy and Alexander the coppersmith. You know, he names names. I'll won't name names to protect the guilty. But we had a guy here not too long ago that came. It turned out that he was a rabbi from another synagogue trying to take people, and he took some of our people with him in the, a month or two that he was here several months ago. He took several families. And they come in and they wiggle their way. Paul calls them infiltrators. He calls them troublemakers that come in. And that's why we say when you come here, become a listener, a disciple. There's a place for everyone. I hope that this is home for every one of you. I want you guys to feel at home here. But Adonai has given us a vision here. And we don't need a second vision, which would be division, or a third vision, trivision, or a fourth vision, quadrivision, or television, or anything like that. Okay. So he takes these sensors, and all of a sudden, to make a long story short, the guys with the sensors, the fire of Adonai came. That's where, and Moses says, you see these guys? Get away from them. Get away from them. That's why if you know of someone that's walking not right with Adonai, don't stand by him, because when the fire of Elohim comes, it might hit you also. And Adonai said, in fact, he calls Dathan and Abraham, you know, come to meet me. He says, no, we're not going to come to meet you. You know, we don't want to come. They didn't want to come for the meeting. But the fire of Adonai came. And it actually came, burnt the 250 so-called priests with their false censers. And the ground opened up as Dathan and Abraham didn't want to come, and they were in the doors of their tent with their wives and their children. The ground opened up and swallowed them alive, and they went to the grave alive. Not only them, but their wives and their children and their little ones. And the ground covered them up and closed up, and the people were afraid. In fact, the people got upset with Moses and said, okay, Moses, what have you done now? You're killing our people off. It wasn't Moses, it wasn't Aaron, it was who? It was Adonai. Because rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And Adonai says, you shall not suffer a witch to live. Actually says that. If we were living in biblical times, anyone that would be a witch, curanderas and all, you know, they wouldn't be around. And so rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft, and Adonai dealt with that sin. Let's go to chapter 18. There, Adonai gives the responsibility of what does it mean to be a priest. And starting with verse 8, the priest's portion is given. And of course, in those days, one of the things that every one of us lives and works for. What do you live and work for? When you work and you go to work, what do you do with your money? What do you do with your money? Well, first of all, it should be for food and shelter. How many have food? You go work, you bring in the food. You go work, you provide shelter. Those are the two main basics of survival. And now, I believe we live in a country where Adonai has allowed us to live above survival. We need to pray for those countries that people are just surviving. In fact, I pray every day for the people in Venezuela. I cannot imagine what they're going through with their socialism. Their socialism has collapsed the country. They took socialism to the extreme that people want to take it in this country, and look what it did to them. These people are going through tremendous suffering. And other countries of the world are going through tremendous suffering because of socialism, because of the way they run their countries. We are blessed to be here, that we could have cars, that we could not only have a shelter, but we could have a nice home, that we could not only have the minimal of food, but that we could enjoy good food, and we have restaurants that we could go eat, and we could have nice cars, and we could even have all kinds of toys. You know, we probably have more toys than we need. You know, we live on, you know, most of our money nowadays I think goes to toys rather than to survival. But this is the country we live in, and in a sense, a priest in the time of Moses. Interesting, they were not given land. They didn't have land. They weren't given houses. They weren't they didn't have nothing. They just lived off the tithes of the people. So the people with finances, the people with monies, the people with their sacrifices, the food, all the rams, the lambs that they had were given to the priest. So the priest actually had an allotment, and they lived, their salary was provided by the whole congregation, all the Levites. Every Levite, the Kohanim and the Leviim, all the tribe of Levi was provided by the congregation. Can you imagine that? They didn't have to worry about a house. They didn't have to worry about food. Everything was provided for them. They had an allotment. They had all these things provided. And that's what it says there. In fact, all of chapter 18 has to do with the Levites and what everything that came in. We're not going to go through that. And the Levites' portion, the salaries, what they received, and verse 25, the tithes. Now, by the way, from 25 on, it's talking about tithing. And everybody tithed to the Levites. And the Levites tithed to the priests. And the priests tithed to the high priest. So tithing goes up. Now, the only difference today is that the tithes don't come to me. Because of our society and non-profit status, the tithing doesn't come to me. In biblical times, the tithing would come to the priest that is in that area. But today, the tithing actually comes to the elders. And the elders, we actually have a paid bookkeeper that even they don't know what you give. Even our elders don't know. We know what's given, but they don't even know what each individual give. And we have a bookkeeper from the outside. We have a bookkeeper that we pay that doesn't know who you guys are, so isn't influenced by, well, so-and-so gave, $1,000. And this guy only gave 10. Oh, let's, favor this guy. No. They don't tell us. They don't tell me. They don't tell David. We don't know what you give. But all the funds come in. And from the funds that come in, the major portion actually goes to the building, logistic, everything for the building, everything that the insurances, everything that goes with running a ministry outside. And of course, a portion comes to me. A portion comes to me as my salary. Now, the priests in biblical times got salaries, got funds, and so do the ministers today. Go with me to 1 Thessalonians 5:12. 1 Thessalonians 5:12. Because a lot of people have said, well, the ministers should not get paid. Well, if they shouldn't get paid, where should they get their finances from? And 1 Thessalonians 5:12. And it says there to you, we appeal to you, brothers, to be considerate or consider those who are working among you and are above you in our master as your teachers. Have the greatest respect and affection for them because of their work. Now, first of all, it uses some terms here that need to be considerate. To consider. The word here is to honor. The word here is to honor and to stipend. Anybody know what a stipend is? When you honor someone, you give a stipend. What's a stipend? Okay. So you honor someone by giving them a stipend. Like when I do weddings. When I do weddings, at the end of the wedding, I don't charge. All my weddings are free. All my funerals are free. Everything that I do, that inside, outside, is free. So if you want to get married, it's free. I don't charge. But at the end of every wedding, usually the best man, the padrino, comes, and they always do this real funny. They always come and, well, I want to thank you here, and they slip you evangelical handshake, a holy handshake, and there's usually $100 in there. And they give you a nice little handshake, thank you, and that's called a stipend. That's an honor. They honor you. They consider you. So consider those who are working among you. I'm working among you. And it says there are over you in our master as your teachers. Now that's a word that people don't like. And in fact, there's several people that have this idea, and they've told me so. I don't believe, and I had one young lady say, I don't believe that any pastor should be over me. I have no one over me. Only Yeshua is over me. Only he could be over me. I don't have no man over me. Well, you're not biblical, because it says those who are your teachers who are over you in Messiah, in our master. Now, if you don't believe you should have anyone over you, only Yeshua, then can you do something for me? Can you erase that verse from your Bible? Just erase it, because it doesn't apply to you. Go with me to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy 5:17. Elders who do their work well while they are in charge. In what? In charge. Well, no one's in charge of me. No one should be in charge. Well, elders who are in charge and do their work well, I hope I'm doing my work well, while they are in charge, are to be given double consideration, double honor double stipend, double. Now my question is, double from who? I don't know. Especially those that are assiduous in preaching and teaching. Do you guys think I'm assiduous in teaching and preaching? Do I do it enough or not enough? Not enough. As Scripture says, you must not muzzle an ox when it's treading out the grain. Now, pastors are likened to oxes. Can you imagine that? I'm an ox. You must not muzzle the ox when it's treading out the grain. And again, the worker deserves his pay. And so over here, when it's talking about the leadership, the teachers, the preachers, those that are in charge are to be given double consideration. Probably double consideration from maybe a secular teacher. What does a teacher get? Any teachers here? What do they get? About 30, 40,000 a year, someplace around there. 50? Wow. Should be given double consideration, it says there. And so it's important that in leadership, you do your work well, you do what you've been called to do, and that you be honored and that you be supported. Now, what's interesting is that Dathan, Abiram, Korah, they all rebelled against Moshe's leadership. Go with me to a couple of scriptures here as we are winding down and close. Go with me to the book of Hebrews. And there's many scriptures, but we really don't have the time. Go to Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17. I'll just mention a couple. Hebrews 13, 17. And again, a lot of people don't like these verses. It says, obey your leaders. What does it say? Obey your leaders. One of the biggest problems in a lot of churches, a lot of congregations, synagogues, kehillah, places, even home churches, is the idea of disobedience. There's people that do not want to do what they're told to do. And again, I've been told, you might be the pastor of them, but Yeshua is my pastor. I've actually been told that. But watch it says, obey your leaders and do as they tell you, because they must give an account of the way they look after your souls. Make this a joy for them to do and not a grief. You yourselves will be the losers. We are sure that our own conscience is clear, and we are certainly determined to behave honorably in everything we do. Pray for us. And so the writer to the Hebrew is telling the congregation, the Messianic congregation that he's writing to, the Hebrews, the Messianics he's writing to, is obey your leaders and do what they tell you. Because, watch what it says, because they will give an account. By the way, you will never give an account for me. You will not give an account for me. When you stand before Adonai, you stand and give an account of yourself. You're standing there in the bema seat, and Adonai is going to ask you about you. What did you do? What did you not do? But when I stand before Adonai, he's going to ask me about me, but then he's going to say, how did you treat Tom? What did you do for Alex? Did you teach the congregation this? Did you teach that? It says, not many of you be teachers, because a teacher is going to get a double judgment. That's why People have actually left here because I wouldn't have them teach, and they go one down the street here and started his own congregation. There are people now that they go to other congregations to buy an ordination. I said the other day, someone wanted me to do a wedding, and I couldn't do the wedding, so they got one of their relatives to get ordained by someone so they could do the wedding. What? These are people that we have some very good elders here. David, Gilbert, Arturo. They are faithful elders here. But I think each one of them would, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we could start the process anytime, but say, you know what, I'm still not ready to be ordained to be a teacher, a pastor, the way the qualifications are. And yet some of these guys that are less than these great men that we have here have gone out, know less of the word, been new believers, or steeped in Christian values or whatever, and yet they're leading Messianic congregations because I wouldn't. In fact, I had a guy wanted me, the wife wanted me to ordain him. And I said, no, I'm not going to ordain him because he needs to do this, this, and this. And so they left, and because this guy wouldn't cut his hair, started his own congregation. But that's one of my qualifications. There's no such thing as hippie ministers. If you want to be a hippie, be a hippie. If you want to be a minister, be a minister. There's qualifications that Adonai has for us. And hair, by the way, is one of the biblical qualifications for leadership. A lot of people don't know that. It says you can't, to be a teacher, you can't shave your head, or you can't let your hair grow long. It has to be at a medium length. So, by the way, I don't shave. That's natural. It says they watch over your souls. You know, a lot of people, by the way, a lot of congregations have what we call permanent visitors. I hope none of you are permanent visitors. I hope every one of you are what we call fellowshippers, members that say, you know, I'm here to support this congregation, to support this. I'm here to learn, to be part of it, but also to, you know, not just be a permanent visitor, that you're always just visiting here. You've been visiting here for 5-6 years. No, that's not what we want. Because I'm going to have to give an account for your soul. And if you say, well, I'm not a member here, does that mean that I don't have to account for your soul, that you're on your own? Well, let me tell you, if you're on your own and I don't have to account for your soul, then when you stand before Adonai, it's going to be tough for you. Make this a joy for them, not a grief. Oh, man, the griefs that I've had, that we've had, that my family has had, you know. In fact, even my mother-in-law has probably seen some of the griefs we have, some of the situations that come up, or this and that says, well, you know, stuff like that happens. Yeah, stuff like that happens because people are mostly in the flesh, and I don't want to do this and that. It's hard being a leader. Make this a joy for me and my family to win. I want you to make this congregation great. Make our fellowship a great place for us to be here, and a time of praise. And there's so much more, but we'll just stop here. And let's go ahead and stand before Adonai. And Father, we don't want to be Korachs. We don't want to be Dathans. We don't want to be Abrahams. We don't want to be sons of Levi who took upon themselves what was not theirs. And we want to be the elders, the Levites, the deacons, and the people of this congregation that you called us, each with our own gift, each in our own place, the men, the women, the older, the younger, the rich, the poor, everyone giving and supporting and being part of what you have. Father, a lot of people have told me, well, tithing is not for today. Well, if tithing is not for today, then the Sabbath is not for today, then the feasts are not for today, then kosher's not for today, then none of these things are for today. But we know they are. And so we know that the tithe, the offerings, what comes in, Father, and what you give to us, what the elders have chosen to give to me and my family on a weekly basis, Father, we receive as from you and be able to live by faith in what you've called us to do. In Yeshua's name, amen. Yevarechecha Yahweh va'ishmerecha. A'ir Yahweh panav elecha v'chunecha. Asa Yahweh panav elecha va'yasem lecha shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a good day. Thank you. Tomorrow is Father's Day, so if we don't see all you fathers, may you all have a blessed Father's Day full of barbacoa, tacos, and menudo. Shalom, shalom.